Hello and welcome. I just wanted to go through what are computers today, and I mentioned what a definition of a computer is, but I'd like to just sort of bullet point any computers that we know of, and just generally things that we don't recognize necessarily as computers, but they are in fact in computers. So I guess the first of all, the first thing is desktops. So they're the classic computers that we would see on a desk at work, or I mean, you might get a gaming one sort of thing. You used to have the CD drive and some on and off button things like there, and but of course now we have the iMac screens that it's all built into, and then yeah, it's at the back, right? The all the computer stuff, all the components are built into the back of the screen. It's a bit like a laptop and things like that, all in one. So, laptop is also, of course, a thing I mentioned. I won't go through what they are, obviously, but laptops and desktops are the two main things when we think of a computer. That's generally what we think of. But we also have, and I'm doing this in a different color. I think modern day now, funnily enough, probably tablet is the thing that younger people think of as a computer, I guess. Well, in fact, tell a lie, because I've heard a story about someone. So basically, someone who works with children asked a question and said, I just need to type that answer onto my computer. And the child thought that it was that it was the tablet, right? They didn't know what a computer was. They didn't know what a desktop was. They'd not seen one of these before. I think the child was 4 or 5 years old or something. So it goes to show that nowadays most people have a tablet in their house, I guess, and they don't tend to have desktops anymore. Potentially a laptop, particularly if you're working. But anyway, this is a quite an amusing story. But we definitely have to say tablets. Now I'm going to change the color again, because we probably don't necessarily think of them as a computer, but our phones are actually computers. If you think about it, it definitely has the definition. It's got a processor and memory and some kind of power supply to it. So it's definitely part of the definition, I suppose, of a computer. Now, the interesting things about phones is we're going to have to cut off a little bit there and say, well, phones also have another computer in there, which is actually a SIM card. So the SIM card can do calculations, and it can actually have memory stored, very short term, but it's got some kind of memory and it's very small. It's got hard drive space as well, which we haven't mentioned yet, but the hard drive space is another form of memory, a long-term memory, if you like. But your SIM card is actually a computer. Now the power comes from your phone, so it can be a little bit of a loose definition, but it's certainly a computer in itself. And maybe we might not think of a SIM card as a computer here. This is why I thought it would be interesting to use this as an example. We'll get into, when we talk about phones later on, we'll definitely get into a lot more interesting things about phones. And we also have things like, I tell you what, I'll put this down because it's probably a big word now, acronym should I say, which is the sorry, this is my dyslexia playing up again. My hand just wants to write whatever it thinks. It even though I know how to spell internet, it just wants to write whatever it wants to write. So the Internet of Things. Well, the Internet of Things is a good way of describing basically everything. The official sort of definition is that it's sensors that are connected to a network effectively. So they're connected sensors And what we know of as IoT type things is things like your Echo, you know, the Amazon Alexa thing. So your Alexa type things. I haven't actually got one set up in this room, so otherwise when I said Alexa it would have gone off. And your Google Home, etc. And this is the actual box in itself, right? This is the Echo and the Home box themselves. Now the quick way of thinking about IoT devices is probably Echoes and Alexas and Googles and the things that we see. We also, though, have a fridge. Well, a fridge has a sensor in it when it gets too warm, perhaps, when it gets too cold. Modern day fridges with sort of a video, actually, of what's inside, and it can keep a stock of what's inside your fridge and tell you when you need to buy some more milk or whatever. So that has a sensor, and it's connected, right? It's connected to the internet. It's connected to your router, which is connected to the internet, and it keeps you updated about things. So that's also a computer. Your fridge, your washing machine, that certainly has a computer in it. It has a computer in it because it has preloaded cycles, right? If I want whites doing, then I twist the... You've got these things here, and it's usually something to do with nylons and hot washes and whites and all sorts. So you might have a 30 degree, a 40 degree, a fast spin, a delicates. And now when I turn this dial, as I'm turning the dial, I'm selecting a preloaded sort of function there, which means that there's a computer behind that's doing some processing, and it's got some memory that knows that it's got to do a 40 degree and a fast spin and all sorts of things. So yeah, washing machines, definitely. Also, you get smart washing machines, and they are then IoT devices. So I'm not saying that all fridges and all washing machines are IoT devices. To make them IoT, or Internet of Things, they need to be connected with sensors. So that's the crucial definition there. One thing that you may not be aware of that's getting... Let me change the colour there, it's getting a bit monotonous. Then one thing you might not be aware of is that under IoT devices, and I'll create a whole section on this itself, are cars. Cars have got so many, a ridiculous amount of sensors and so many computers in it. It's insane. The amount of data that can come from a car, we will go through in the cybersecurity sections, but the amount of data and sensors they have is absolutely insane. They do send data through, they actually usually have, funnily enough, SIM cards in them. They can have a few SIM cards, 3-4 SIM cards maybe for newer kind of cars. So yeah, you can actually buy cars, by the way. If you buy them brand new, you can request the car to take out the SIM cards so they can't send over the data. We'll discuss this more in depth when we go through the IoT, and I'll explain how you hack cars and what we can do with them and how we should be careful and just best practice of car safety and security, as well as how to hack them, because it's kind of fun. Ethically, of course. So I hope we're starting to appreciate what the extent of how many computers there are around us. We also have, so I'm going to put car parks down here, but these, by car parks, what I mean actually is, well, car parks, they take a picture of your registration plate. They take a picture of your registration plate, and then that gets sent off. So this picture gets sent off behind the scenes, and then it goes back and da-da-da. It's quite smart. There's some databases and stuff that's going on behind here, and some processing and things like that. So we've got car parks, we've got CCTV in the same vein. They're computers. They're doing some processing. And going back to the... I suppose we should have done it further up, but going back to the IoT, is things like farms. they tend to be completely networked now. So let's say this is a huge piece of land and a farm, and what they tend to have now is spread out into a network. They might stick some kind of pole in the ground every so often, and it would be checking for things like moisture. They might have some sort of sensors to see how many bugs there are, or I don't know, I'm just sort of going out on a whim here, but you can think what would be useful for a farmer to know about their crops. So you do have this interesting IoT network, right? These are all connected up. Then they'll be going back from here to some kind of house, I would say. And inside the house, or like a servery type thing, there would be a router, right? So this would be connected to a main router with a computer, probably with some kind of desktop. But again, we will go through this. We can create an IoT section. We'll talk about all of this later on. So really, there's fascinating things, and I appreciate that this video has gone a bit longer than I hoped. I like to keep them around the 10-minute mark, but I really hope you appreciate how widespread computers are, and they are absolutely everywhere. And as a last task, I task you to think of more, right? When you're walking around, think of what else is a computer. You might be surprised where computers exist. So thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.